When we talk about pleasure, most people think it's just physical, fleeting, something that happens and then fades away. But the truth is far more fascinating. Pleasure is deeply rooted in the brain's reward system, in the complex dance of dopamine, serotonin, and the intricate networks that drive our behaviors and desires. As a urologist, I've seen time and again how understanding this science can transform intimacy, connection, and satisfaction, not just for a moment, but in ways that are profound and lasting. Many of us underestimate how powerful anticipation, touch, and subtle cues are. The body doesn't just respond to stimuli, it responds to meaning, to attention, and to emotional safety. When someone is fully present, when their touch is intentional, the brain lights up in ways that trigger deep, sustained pleasure. It's not magic, it's neuroscience. The release of dopamine signals reward, but it's the balance with tension and restraint that makes the experience unforgettable. This is why learning the science behind arousal, responsiveness, and intimate touch matters. Every gesture, every touch, every pause has the potential to activate neural pathways that lead to pleasure that is rich, resonant, and deeply satisfying. Understanding her physiology, combined with empathy and mindful engagement, creates an experience that is not just physical, but transformative. Pleasure isn't just about the body, it's about the brain, the connection, and the subtle ways we engage all our senses. In my experience, when people apply this knowledge, they stop chasing fleeting moments of excitement and instead cultivate experiences that are layered, lasting, and meaningful. It's about unlocking a deeper rhythm, a dance between anticipation and release, science and intimacy, curiosity and connection. This is how we move from simple satisfaction to profound pleasure, and it's accessible to anyone willing to learn, understand, and engage fully. So, whether you think of pleasure as art or science, the truth is both. By embracing the neuroscience, the biology, and the psychology behind her deepest pleasure, you can create moments that are powerful, electrifying, and unforgettable. And that is what mastery of intimacy really looks like. Pleasure is far more than just a physical sensation. It is a complex, intricate process that begins in the brain. Every moment of desire, excitement, or satisfaction is orchestrated by neural circuits, neurotransmitters, and the delicate balance of chemical signaling. Dopamine, often called the brain's reward molecule, plays a central role, but it is only one part of a sophisticated network that determines how we experience pleasure. When we think about intimacy or sexual response, it is easy to assume that the body is doing all the work. Touch, movement, and physical connection are certainly important, but the brain is the true conductor of the experience. Without understanding how the brain is wired, it is impossible to fully unlock the potential for deep, sustained pleasure. The brain constantly evaluates stimuli, assigning meaning and emotional weight to every interaction. When a person is engaged, present, and attuned to their partner, the brain's reward centers become more active, releasing not only dopamine but also oxytocin and serotonin, which enhance bonding, trust, and a sense of safety. This is why moments of connection can feel electric, transcending the purely physical. Pleasure is not just something that happens, it is something that is created through a combination of attention, presence, and intention. Each touch, glance, or gesture communicates information to the brain, activating circuits that can either enhance or diminish the experience depending on context, emotional resonance, and timing. Understanding the neural basis of pleasure also sheds light on why anticipation is so powerful. The brain responds strongly to cues that signal potential reward. Anticipation triggers dopamine release even before the physical act occurs, heightening sensitivity and making the eventual experience more intense. This is why mindful, deliberate pacing in intimacy matters. The brain is constantly predicting outcomes and reacting to them, and by aligning our actions with this natural process, it is possible to amplify pleasure far beyond what might seem possible from touch alone. The implications of this are profound. When we approach intimacy with knowledge of how the brain works, we shift from reactive behavior to proactive engagement. We learn to read subtle signals, to understand the importance of emotional context, and to recognize that the brain's reward system thrives on novelty, attention, and meaning. Pleasure becomes a collaborative process, not a mechanical one. It requires curiosity, empathy, and awareness. By recognizing that the brain drives desire, We can also recognize the potential to create experiences that are transformative, deeply memorable, and psychologically fulfilling. This perspective changes the way we think about intimacy, desire, and connection. It moves us from a simplistic understanding where pleasure is just a physical endpoint to a nuanced appreciation of the brain's role in shaping the entire experience. When a person is attentive to their partner, aware of the psychological and emotional components, and engaged with the neural underpinnings of pleasure, the results are extraordinary. Touch becomes electric, anticipation becomes tantalizing, and every interaction has the potential to engage the brain's reward circuits in a way that produces deep, resonant satisfaction. Ultimately, pleasure is wired in the brain, and understanding this wiring is the key to mastery. It is a reminder that intimacy is not just a physical act, but a science and art and a dance between brain, body, and emotion. By approaching pleasure through the lens of neuroscience, we gain tools to enhance connection, deepen satisfaction, and create experiences that are both unforgettable and profoundly fulfilling. Knowledge is power, and in this case, it is the power to unlock the full potential of human pleasure. Anticipation is one of the most powerful drivers of pleasure, yet it is often overlooked in conversations about intimacy. The brain does not merely respond to immediate stimulation. It thrives on prediction, expectation, and the unfolding of experience. From a neuroscientific perspective, the moments leading up to a rewarding sensation can be even more activating than the sensation itself. Dopamine, the brain's primary reward chemical, is released not only during the pleasurable event, but also in anticipation of it, creating a heightened state of alertness, desire, and engagement. This means that the way we pace intimacy, how we build connection, and how we sequence experiences can profoundly shape the intensity of pleasure that follows. When we engage in anticipation, the brain is essentially primed for reward. It begins to map out potential outcomes, to evaluate context, and to heighten sensitivity in preparation for what is to come. This is why intentional pacing, curiosity, and suspense in intimate moments can transform an experience from ordinary to extraordinary. Anticipation engages the prefrontal cortex, which governs attention and decision-making, as well as the nucleus accumbens, the brain's core reward center, creating a synergy that amplifies the eventual pleasure response. It is this neurological process that makes the slow build-up, the teasing, and the attentive observation so compelling and potent. Understanding anticipation also explains why novelty and variation play such a critical role in pleasure. The brain responds strongly to new, unexpected, or meaningful stimuli because it interprets them as high-value rewards. Repetition can dull the reward response, while anticipation of something slightly unpredictable can increase dopamine release and emotional engagement. This is not just about excitement for its own sake. It is about aligning with how the brain is wired to experience reward. Anticipation turns simple touch, words, or gestures into a rich, layered experience that resonates with both mind and body. Furthermore, anticipation is inseparable from emotional context. The brain does not process physical sensations in isolation. It integrates them with feelings of safety, trust, and connection. When a person feels emotionally secure and valued, the anticipation of pleasure triggers even more robust neural responses. Oxytocin, the hormone associated with bonding and trust, works in tandem with dopamine to heighten the brain's reward circuitry. This is why emotional attunement, attentive presence, and clear communication amplify the effects of anticipation. It is not merely what happens, but how it is anticipated that determines the depth and quality of the experience. Anticipation also cultivates mindfulness and engagement. When the brain is actively predicting and preparing for pleasure, the mind becomes fully present. Every subtle signal, every gesture, and every change in tone or movement carries significance. This heightened state of awareness allows both partners to attune to one another more deeply, enhancing connection and responsiveness. Anticipation transforms intimacy into a dynamic, interactive process rather than a static, mechanical one. It is a dance of expectation, observation, and timing that continuously feeds the brain's reward system. Ultimately, understanding anticipation reveals that pleasure is not simply a moment of climax. It is a process, a journey orchestrated by the brain's reward circuits. By valuing anticipation as much as the act itself, we tap into a fundamental principle of human neurobiology. We learn that building, pacing, and sustaining expectation can elevate every interaction, creating experiences that are richer, more satisfying, and profoundly memorable. When anticipation is harnessed consciously, intimacy transcends the purely physical and becomes an intricate, emotionally resonant, and neurologically empowered experience. Emotional safety is one of the most powerful and often overlooked drivers of pleasure. Pleasure is not a purely physical phenomenon. It is an experience deeply rooted in the brain, where emotion and sensation are inseparable. The moment a person feels safe, valued, and understood, their nervous system relaxes, the brain's reward centers become more responsive, and every stimulus, from a subtle touch to a shared glance, becomes amplified. Trust and connection are not optional extras. They are central to unlocking the full potential of human pleasure. Without emotional safety, even the most attentive actions may fail to engage the brain in a meaningful way, leaving experiences feeling flat or disconnected. When the brain perceives safety, it downregulates stress circuits and allows the release of oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. Oxytocin enhances feelings of intimacy, closeness, and trust, creating a neural environment in which pleasure can flourish. At the same time, dopamine continues to signal reward, making anticipation, touch, and subtle cues far more potent. The combination of oxytocin and dopamine creates a powerful synergy. The brain experiences pleasure not just as a chemical reaction, but as a profound, emotionally resonant state. Emotional safety primes the nervous system to respond fully, allowing every sensation to be registered with intensity, clarity, and depth. Understanding this dynamic explains why connection is as important as technique. Pleasure is amplified when individuals feel seen and attended to, when their responses are acknowledged, and when their boundaries are respected. The brain is exquisitely sensitive to social and emotional cues. It constantly monitors whether the environment feels supportive, responsive, and predictable. A sense of safety allows attention to be directed fully toward the moment, rather than diverted toward anxiety, fear, or doubt. This is why even small gestures, gentle reassurance, eye contact, affirming words, can dramatically enhance the experience. They signal to the brain that it is safe to engage, to explore, and to respond fully. Emotional safety also shapes anticipation, which is a critical driver of pleasure. When trust exists, the brain feels confident in predicting positive outcomes. Dopamine is released not only during moments of reward, but also in the build-up toward them, and this effect is magnified when the individual feels secure. The interplay between anticipation and emotional safety transforms ordinary experiences into something extraordinary. Every touch, pause, and subtle signal is interpreted by the brain as meaningful, reinforcing both connection and pleasure. Additionally, emotional safety encourages mindfulness. When individuals feel secure and supported, they can immerse themselves in the experience, noticing subtle sensations and responding intuitively. The brain's attentional networks are fully engaged, amplifying both the physical and emotional dimensions of pleasure. This state of mindful engagement allows for deeper connection, richer experiences, and a more profound sense of satisfaction. Pleasure becomes a shared journey, rather than a momentary act. It is co-created through trust, empathy, and attunement. Ultimately, the science is clear. Emotional safety is not a luxury, it is essential. The nervous system cannot fully participate in pleasure when it is threatened or anxious. By cultivating trust, connection, and attentiveness, it is possible to unlock experiences that are not only physically satisfying, but also emotionally transformative. Understanding that pleasure is intertwined with emotional safety changes the way we approach intimacy entirely. It shifts the focus from purely mechanical actions to a holistic appreciation of mind, body, and emotion working in harmony. By prioritizing emotional safety, we tap into a powerful, often underestimated force that elevates human connection, deepens satisfaction, and creates moments that are unforgettable and profoundly fulfilling. Intentionality is one of the most transformative aspects of pleasure. Many people assume that physical satisfaction is purely about action or technique, but the reality is that the mind and the brain are central to every experience. When touch, movement, or gestures are deliberate and mindful, they communicate far more than simple physical stimulation. They send signals to the brain that amplify reward, connection, and anticipation. Every subtle variation, every pause, every adjustment carries meaning. And the brain responds to these nuances with heightened activation of the reward circuitry. Intentionality transforms ordinary sensations into profound experiences that resonate on multiple levels, creating pleasure that is both rich and lasting. The nervous system is constantly interpreting signals from the body and the environment. When touch is intentional, the brain interprets it as meaningful, safe, and valuable. Dopamine is released in response to these cues, but so too is oxytocin, reinforcing trust, attachment, and connection. The combination of these neurochemicals amplifies the brain's response to pleasure, making each moment more intense and memorable. Simple gestures, when performed with presence and awareness, can activate neural pathways that turn ordinary interactions into deeply rewarding experiences. It is not the quantity of stimulation, but the quality and precision of engagement that determines the depth of pleasure. Intentionality also requires attentiveness. The most effective interactions are those in which each partner is fully present, observing subtle signals, responding to feedback, and adjusting their actions accordingly. This creates a dynamic, responsive loop between brain and body, between anticipation and sensation. The brain thrives on this type of interaction because it signals predictability, safety, and emotional attunement. These elements allow the nervous system to relax while simultaneously heightening sensitivity, creating the optimal conditions for profound pleasure. Another critical aspect of intentionality is timing. The brain's reward circuits are highly responsive to pacing, rhythm, and variation. When touch or gestures are thoughtfully timed, they create cycles of tension and release that engage dopamine signaling more effectively than random or rushed actions. The interplay of anticipation and fulfillment enhances the emotional and physical experience, reinforcing both neural and psychological satisfaction. Intentionality in timing demonstrates respect for the brain's natural reward system and aligns with the principle that pleasure is as much about the journey as it is about the moment of peak sensation. Intentionality also extends beyond the body to include communication, expression, and presence. Words, tone, and eye contact all send signals to the brain that shape perception and expectation. When these elements are aligned with action, they reinforce trust, connection, and engagement. The brain interprets consistent and mindful attention as meaningful and rewarding, amplifying the overall experience. In this way, intentionality is both a physical and psychological principle, bridging the mind and body to create pleasure that is nuanced, deep, and enduring. Ultimately, intentionality is the bridge between understanding and mastery. It transforms knowledge about physiology, neurochemistry, and psychology into actionable behaviors that elevate intimacy and connection. Simple awareness, being deliberate in every gesture, responsive to every signal, and attuned to both emotional and physical feedback, can turn ordinary experiences into extraordinary ones. By cultivating intentionality, pleasure becomes a co-created dynamic process, rooted in science but elevated by presence, care, and awareness. This principle teaches us that mastery is not about force or quantity, but about understanding, engagement, and precision. When every touch is intentional, the brain responds fully, the nervous system thrives, and pleasure becomes profound, transformative, and unforgettable. Balance is one of the most critical yet often overlooked elements in the experience of pleasure. Pleasure is not a singular moment. It is a dynamic process that involves tension and release, anticipation and fulfillment, curiosity and gratification. The brain is wired to respond not just to sensation itself, but to patterns and contrasts within that sensation. Moments of intensity become meaningful and memorable only when they are interspersed with moments of restraint, pause, or subtlety. The interplay between these opposing forces creates a rhythm that engages the brain's reward system more deeply than continuous stimulation ever could. Understanding this balance is essential for transforming fleeting satisfaction into enduring, profound pleasure. The neuroscience behind this is fascinating. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter most closely associated with reward, does not merely increase with pleasure, it increases in response to the expectation of reward and the contrast between desire and fulfillment. When the brain experiences unrelenting stimulation, dopamine levels can plateau, diminishing the intensity of pleasure. On the other hand, when stimulation is modulated with periods of tension, pause, or anticipation, dopamine release is amplified, making each subsequent sensation more impactful. In essence, the brain is wired to enjoy peaks more when they are contrasted with valleys, when release follows restraint, and when fulfillment is earned rather than instant. This principle applies to all forms of pleasure, particularly intimate experiences. Balance is also deeply intertwined with emotional engagement. The brain does not respond to touch, movement, or sensation in isolation. It integrates emotional context, trust, and connection into every reward calculation. When anticipation is built carefully and interwoven with emotional attunement, the nervous system responds more fully. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, interacts with dopamine to create a profound sense of connection, amplifying pleasure beyond the purely physical. This delicate interplay requires awareness, mindfulness, and sensitivity, but the payoff is transformative. Pleasure becomes not only more intense, but also more meaningful and emotionally resonant. Moreover, balance allows for adaptability. No two experiences, no two individuals, or no two moments are identical. The brain thrives on variation and nuance, and understanding the rhythm of tension and release helps both partners remain responsive and engaged. It encourages attunement to subtle cues, feedback, and changes in energy, creating a dynamic, co-created experience. Balance is not merely about technique, it is about responsiveness, intuition, and alignment with the brain's natural reward patterns. When these elements are respected, every gesture, pause, and moment of connection is heightened, making the overall experience richer, more satisfying, and more memorable. Balance also fosters sustainable pleasure over time. Continuous unmodulated stimulation can desensitize neural pathways, reducing the intensity of subsequent experiences. In contrast, periods of restraint, anticipation, or mindful slowing allow the nervous system to reset and heighten responsiveness. This creates a feedback loop in which pleasure accumulates, intensity is magnified, and satisfaction is prolonged. The brain learns to anticipate and reward each moment, making every interaction increasingly meaningful. This principle demonstrates that mastery of pleasure is not about excess or intensity alone, but about modulation, rhythm, and alignment with the brain's natural mechanisms. Ultimately, balance teaches us that pleasure is a dance between tension and release, desire and fulfillment, anticipation and satisfaction. When we understand this rhythm and apply it intentionally, we transform fleeting moments into experiences that are profound, emotionally rich, and neurologically optimized. The science is clear. Sustained, transformative pleasure arises not from continuous stimulation, but from the careful orchestration of contrast, timing, and rhythm. By embracing balance, we honor the brain's design, engage the nervous system fully, and create moments that are unforgettable, deeply satisfying, and truly transformative. Knowledge is one of the most powerful tools we have when it comes to pleasure. Many people approach intimacy and connection instinctively, relying solely on physical cues or habits, without understanding the underlying mechanisms that drive desire, satisfaction, and fulfillment. The brain, however, is highly responsive to understanding, anticipation, and awareness. When we approach pleasure with knowledge about physiology, neuroscience, psychology, and human connection, we are able to engage the brain's reward system in a way that is deliberate, precise, and transformative. Knowledge allows us to move beyond fleeting gratification into experiences that are emotionally rich, deeply satisfying, and neurologically optimized. Understanding the brain's role in pleasure is foundational. The neural circuits governing desire, reward, and satisfaction are complex, but they follow predictable patterns. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and other neurotransmitters are constantly interacting to regulate anticipation, arousal, and fulfillment. When we recognize how these chemicals influence perception and response, we gain the ability to modulate experiences in ways that enhance pleasure. This is not manipulation, it is mindful engagement. Knowledge allows us to be attuned to the subtle cues that indicate how the brain and body are responding, so that every touch, pause, or interaction can be optimized for maximum impact. Knowledge also empowers intentionality. When we understand the science behind touch, timing, and emotional connection, we are able to act with purpose, Rather than reactively, every gesture becomes meaningful because it is informed by insight into how the brain processes reward. Anticipation, rhythm, and pacing can be guided by understanding, creating a dynamic feedback loop in which both partners are fully engaged. The brain rewards this intentionality with heightened dopamine release, stronger emotional bonding, and a deeper sense of satisfaction. Knowledge transforms interactions from mechanical routines into co-created, richly layered experiences. Furthermore, understanding pleasure scientifically allows us to navigate complexity with confidence. Human responses are not uniform. Each person's brain responds uniquely to stimulation, connection, and emotion. Knowledge provides a framework for observation, adaptation, and responsiveness. It teaches us to recognize subtle differences in cues, adjust actions accordingly, and create experiences that are tailored to the individual. This alignment between insight and action enhances both emotional and physical intimacy, fostering trust, closeness, and a sense of shared mastery. Knowledge also bridges the gap between curiosity and fulfillment. The brain thrives on novelty and meaningful variation, and understanding this allows us to introduce new elements, explore different rhythms, and cultivate anticipation in ways that sustain excitement and engagement. Knowledge encourages exploration grounded in awareness, transforming pleasure from a simple reaction into a mindful, co-created process. This combination of understanding, curiosity, and precision allows the brain to experience reward more fully, making moments of connection richer, more memorable, and profoundly satisfying. Ultimately, knowledge is empowerment. By learning the principles that govern pleasure, desire, and intimacy, we gain the ability to move beyond habit or instinct and enter a space of mastery. We can create interactions that are deeply attuned, emotionally resonant, and neurologically optimized. Knowledge allows us to engage fully with both brain and body, to anticipate and respond with precision, and to transform ordinary experiences into moments that are unforgettable. Mastery of pleasure is not about force or quantity. It is about awareness, understanding, and the deliberate application of insight. When we bring knowledge into intimacy, every touch, pause, and gesture becomes meaningful, and every experience becomes an opportunity to cultivate profound, lasting, and transformative satisfaction.